used for the purposes outlined in the Surface Mine Reclamation Act,
Just checking.
which would be for mine fires and subsidence events.
So, Mr. Parfit, SMACRA, as it's called, surface mining, I've seen people build wings onto hospitals with that money. I mean, is this far from an underground fire? Is this more tightly limited?
Mr. Chairman, it is much more tightly limited, and what you're referring to would be referred to as public facilities. And as a certified state under the AML program, when we have funded all of the known coal and non-coal reclamation sites, that's the time when we would be able to fund public facilities. We did this back in 2018 or 19 was the last time we were able to do that. But these funds are specific only for mine fires and for subsidence events associated with coal mining.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, you're creating an account, the long-term abandoned mine, but you're disposing of the other account. Why wouldn't it work for the assessor to be this kind of an account? The balancing account is repealed.
Mr. Chairman, I think this was a suggestion from LSO to repeal the balancing account, and my understanding that there are no funds in the balancing account. It was established to help address what was referred to as prior balance funds. So in the amendments to SMACRA in 2006, those amendments allowed for the repayment or what was due to Wyoming that had not been provided to Wyoming from SMACRA, which amounted to about $580 million, if you might recall. That was to be utilized at the discretion of the legislature. And those funds have all been appropriated by the legislature and expended.
Anything else from the committee? I have one other follow-up based on what Senator Guru asked. It sounded like you can't draw on this until after the 15 years has expired, or can you draw, if we had a mine fire tomorrow, could you draw upon it?
Mr. Chairman, if we had a mine fire, a new mine fire that came up, we would use existing funds, the 70% remaining that isn't set aside, or the standard, what we call the in lieu funding account, which is those funds come from a fee assessed to the coal mines per ton. It's 22.4 cents per ton of coal produced. That then 50% of that comes back to the state, to the AML program for those types of events.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for the agency? Anything else? All right, public comment? Public comment? I'll close public comment. It's to the committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion or amendments? None. Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson?
Aye.
Senator Guru?
Aye.
Senator Nethercott?
Excused.
Senator Salzar? Aye. And Chairman Kinski?
Aye.
Chairman Kinski, House Bill 72, outcome 4 ayes. Do you pass?
I'll go ahead and take this one unless somebody else wants it. Okay.
73.
Thanks,
Okay, I'll handle that one on the floor, Linda. All right, next is House Bill 71, Broadband Development Account Amendments. Do we have an agency here for presentation? No? All right. Open it up to the public. Public comment. Close public comment. It's to the committee.
Move the bill.
Second.
Second.
Moved and second. Discussion. Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson?
Aye.
Senator Guru?
Aye.
Senator Salzar? Aye. And Chairman Kinski?
Aye. Who wants
Chairman
to?
Kinski, House Bill 71 passes with 4 ayes.
All right, thank you. Who wants? All right.
I'll take it.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, next item of business is House Bill 72, Workers' Compensation Provision for Adverse Deviation. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Jason Wolf with the Department of Workforce Services. I think you all are mostly familiar with House Bill 72 since we worked on it in the interim a bit. I'll start, I guess, with any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Just go ahead and give us an overview because the interim seems like it was 100 years ago, honestly.
Mr. Chairman, so House Bill 72, really, pages 1 and 2 are just making some conforming language amendments. There you'll see the, just changes what we used to call a contingency to what we now call a provision for adverse deviation. The crux of the bill really is on page 3. What this essentially does is it will allow the workers' comp division to consider a portion between 0 and 5% of what we call the PFAD or provision for adverse deviation. It will allow us to consider a portion of that income on the PFAD, which will essentially allow us to lower rates somewhat significantly, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Committee questions about the PFAD? Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, so by decreasing the workman's compensation premiums, it's 23 million a year is what we're giving up?
So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I mean, there was a range. I mean, the interim, we had the actuary work up pretty much a range of what it would have looked like. I'll use an example of the 2024 rates. We were, without this mechanism, we did for this year lower rates 6.5%, which is roughly equal to about $13 million annually in decreased premium. If we employed the methods within this bill, we could have lowered the rates using 2.5% of that PFAD income. We could have lowered the rates about 18.4%, and that's roughly equal to about $25 million in annual premium. As an example, I did work up a little bit of an example for Representative Larson, who I think is carrying it on the House side. You know, the average premium for what we call an extra hazardous industry, those are the industries in the state that are required to have the workers' comp coverage. So the annual premium for them is right around $13,000 a year annually. If we employed these methods, we could potentially lower that down to roughly about $2,500 a year in annual savings for the average employer.
Mr. Chairman, I really like this talk of lowering that. In my business years, it was always increase. So this is wonderful.
Okay. Anything further for the agency? Senator Guru?
No, I just want to thank Jason for coming over today and helping us out with this. This is really, these guys, Department of Workforce Services does a great job, and they're always trying to work on ways to help out business. And
I appreciate it too. At the city, you know, you guys used to come in and you'd do a safety review for us and show us ways that we could improve and improve our rate. I always appreciated what you guys were able to do. Anything for Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, could you send us that synopsis you gave to Representative Larson?
Mr.
One of us
Chairman,
could use it on the
absolutely, yeah.
floor.
I can send that to you.
Who could use it the most on the floor?
Whoever presents it. I'd like to present it. It's unheard of to cut the rates. Wow, that's wonderful.
Anything further for the agency? Comments from the public? Comments from the public? Closing public comment. It's to the committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion or amendments? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Guru.
I,
Senator Salzar. And Chairman Kinski.
Aye.
Chairman Kinski, House Bill 72 passes with 4 ayes.
All right, thank you, Jason. So folks, we wanted to knock those 3 out. We've got to keep the floor busy. They've got to have some bills down there. If they're not busy, all kinds of mischief breaks loose. So with that, I'll bring up House Bill 70, local government distributions. I don't believe we have any agency presentations on that, do we? Oh, we do. Yeah, we'll open up for public comment. Good morning. I just want to say I do see a lot of my friends from WAM here and from my district. It's good to see y'all. 2 nights I tried to make it out there and I was stuck here. And I regret that because it's good to hang out with local government. Sometimes it's a little bit too much fun, but
Thank you, Chairman Kinski, and appreciate you trying to make it, and we appreciate the hard work you guys have been doing with the budget bills. It's been some long hours. I'm Matt Hall. I'm the mayor of City of Cody and the president of Wyoming Association of Municipalities. To my left is our executive director, Dave Frazier, and our mayor of Albin, and our legislative lead, Kelly Krakow. And of course, in case there's any ambiguity with who else is in the room, I would ask all our municipal officials to stand up real quick and be recognized.
The whole room rises.
thank God nobody's got a rope.
Thank you. We're all here this morning to urge you to pass this bill as it's amended out of the House. Direct distribution, just real briefly, in its current form, has been around since 2004, as you know. It was originally and still represents a partial replacement for the loss of revenue created when the maximum distribution to local governments for severance taxes and mineral royalties were capped in 2001. The squeeze of this reduction of mineral revenue away from local governments was further compounded in 2006 when the legislature repealed the food tax. Despite assurances the local governments would be held harmless in the repeal, with promised ongoing backfill payments from the state to make up the loss of state sales tax revenue, only one singular payment was made in 2007. But more importantly, we feel that this is an investment in our municipalities. These are funds that we use to help generate growth and economic development that grows the state sales tax for everyone. So again, I just urge that you pass this bill forward and have all of our support. And with that, I would turn it over to my 2 colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, again, Kelly Krakow. I just got a couple things I'll throw on there to have you guys consider on there. You know, we hear a lot ARPA, backfill to towns. You got a lot of money from that. I know Albin, ours was spent the end of '03. Couple other things. We look at how ARPA was supposed to do. It was supposed to backfill the loss of revenue and help fulfill some of the additional expenditures. A lot of that was in the health department, masks, gloves, all the safety cleaning on that. So consider that in thinking in there. Another thing, I'm kind of showing my age, but I've been doing this for over 20 years. And when I come to legislature, I wanted to do my due diligence when I first got on. What I've been hearing for years is municipalities always come and they want money, and in the bad years, they need to learn to take cuts like us. And I'm not all against that, but they'd follow it up. Municipalities need to put money in savings, just like the state. Well, a lot of times you guys put money in savings when we don't have a chance to. The other thing of it is we were at 169 million. The economy in the state of Wyoming went in the hole, and that's kind of where the 105 came into play. But that was 8 years ago. And now things have improved, but the 105 hasn't. And if you take the inflation rate, the inflation on that, we haven't been able to keep up. And I guess the other one, I have a question for you, if you guys can answer. Where, you hear ARPA's made you flush, the 105s, plenty of money, that's more money the municipalities need. Some think it's less. Where does that number come from? Where did the data come from to say 105 million's enough for counties and municipality to live on? Was there any data that was come up on, okay, this is what it costs for counties and municipalities to run? I just like to throw that out there. If there is, I'd like to see it, because I think the counties and towns, there's something missing in there that we're not getting. Just something to throw out and think about. The other thing of it is, it seems like when we come to the budget and the money, the state municipalities and counties are far apart. The way I see it, we should be partners in this. We're both government agencies. Municipalities and counties are elected by 100% of the people, just like you. We're elected to represent 100% of the people of Wyoming, just like you. You know, we're out here to do what's best for the people. Direct distribution's 20-some% of municipality and county's budget. We can't do it without that money. So just a few things to consider, and please go forward with 136, or if you want to put more in there, we're happy with that too. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mayor? No? Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but to answer his 105, I was on the other side of this at that time, and I remember the discussion, we were replacing the taxes on groceries. And there was a lot of discussion about what those taxes were, but they did a very conclusive study of what we actually collected from groceries. And that's kind of where they came to the 105. And I agree with you, that's been a long time ago.
And groceries got more expensive since then.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for the municipalities? Stay right there, though. Commissioner Novotny.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Bill Novotny, Johnson County Commissioner and President of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. I'm here today on behalf of all of the 23 counties to share our support for this bill as it is currently amended with that increased dollars. If you look at our operating costs over the year, we are being crushed by inflation. We're now going to anticipate an increase in our contribution to employee and law enforcement contributions. We have some of our counties that you are aware of that are traditionally referred to as the hardship counties. Because of influxes of population, some of those counties are going to risk falling out of the hardship formula because when the Madden matrix was written, it didn't anticipate growth in population in these areas. So these additional dollars are critical to help us to continue to fund. In Washakie County, direct distribution makes up 1/3 of their operating
Holy
budget.
smokes.
These dollars are critical to allow us to provide the essential services that you task us with, because counties are a direct extension of the state, and we're a political subdivision of you. And so we are tasked with health, welfare, and safety, and these dollars are critical to allow us to do those missions. We appreciate your support in the past, and we would ask you to hold the line on this amount, and if you feel so inclined, we'd love to see you add a little more in there. So again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity this morning and for all of the hard work of this committee. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for any one of the four of you. Do you know how they came up with 146? Was there inflation factors put to the 105, or was that just a grab out of the blue, or how did they come up with that? We'll have to defend it on the floor, so.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, neither WHAM or the WCCA were party to the discussion of how that number was arrived at. We certainly would be happy to go back to the bringer of the amendment and get that information for you, but it was a number that they chose. Direct distribution came in at 105. I believe a little more was added, and then finally they settled on 146. But certainly, we'd be happy to gather that information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Was that the number from last time?
No, that's a number this time, 146, 250.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
just add on a little bit. I think the biggest problem that we have with the direct distribution is when this was started, there should have been a needs or analysis formula to say, okay, this is what it takes to run counties, cities, and towns, and then put an inflationary rider in there. Then we'd know exactly what that number is, but it was never done. So to me, it seems like we take 4 or 5 numbers, throw them against the wall, the one that sticks, that's what we're. So I think it would be, if you guys would be entertaining an interim topic, is do some studies on this to see what cities, towns, and counties really need, and we'll know what that basis is. And I do have a couple ideas on funding models. I'd like to throw that on top if anybody would entertain it. So just a little info on that. Thank you.
Committee,
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Anderson.
just so you know, over the past, the Senate has tried to put an inflationary thing in there, and we've been defeated every time. So that didn't work, but you're right, an interim study might be the best way to do that. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of building in inflation clauses because that causes inflation to feed in on itself. If you remember the bad old days when prime rate hit 21%, the trend after that was to stop putting these automatic cost of living adjustments in anything. Social Security's the only one that gets it anymore because you can't, old people vote. That's the #1 rule. And, but otherwise, the trend has been to not do that. Before we go to you, Mr. Fraser, I want to come back to Bill. Washakie, 1/3 of the budget. Can you give us, and it's got to happen quick because this bill's moving, a listing county by county of their total budget and how much their budget comes from this?
Mr. Chairman, we will do our best to pull those statistics for you before this hits the floor this morning.
And I know that you guys on the county commission side, it's like a love fest compared to Wham. But so you have all kind of settled on this formula, but I'd like to take a look at the formula and feather it. I've always been an advocate to take care of the least of our brethren. I may not do it this time, but I'd like to see if there's some way to feather that formula a little bit so that the ones that, for some counties, this is just, it's 5-6%. But 1/3 of the budget, that's life support. And I'd like to take a look at maybe just tilting the field a little bit. I know the counties that are rich always think they're not rich, but just tilting that formula a little bit. And I don't know that I will, but I'd just like to get that listing of that ranking, but from high to low. That'd be, 1/3 blows my mind.
Mr. Chairman, we will begin working on that right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fraser.
Mr. Chairman? Oh, go.
Oh, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Senator.
Go ahead with Dave.
Please, Mr. Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, David Fraser, Executive Director, Wyoming Association of Municipalities. We really appreciate your time, and as you just indicated, this direct distribution is very important to all of our municipalities, but critical to most of our municipalities. They'd have trouble, most of our cities would have trouble surviving without this. I would just add as a reminder that the folks behind me represent 70% of all of Wyoming residents. When you add in our brothers and sisters at the counties, that brings it to 100% of Wyoming's residents that are dependent on this. And I will tell you that any money that any extra money, if you wanted to give, none would go to waste. There are many more needs out there than there are resources in our communities. And I can tell you that you'll have a lot of very appreciative folks if you pass this bill as it stands or with an increase. And I promise you it'll make a positive difference in your own communities. Thank you.
Senator Guru?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Taking off on my good friend from the Turner County, I think we could, maybe it might be fruitful. We'll see when we talk in our own topics here after a bit, but maybe we take off of what you said, maybe start with the Madden formula, deconstruct it. Maybe we get Mike down here and just walk us through that and then start to build on that. I agree with you. Inflation adjustment, like a number that it's just going to go up every year, does exactly what you said. It just feeds on itself. But there's a metric out there that we could probably work through and maybe even use the Madden formula to do it between population and cost analysis and whatever that these folks go through. There might be something there, but more to the point, as a former city councilman, former mayor, we got that kind of covered here. And believe me, I know, I was city councilman from 88 to 92. And there's still a lady in Pine Drive up in Jackson, as I look at the mayor, who once a year calls me during the winter and say, Mike, the windrows in my driveway. Could you get someone up here to take care of it? Now, I could go on and explain to her that I haven't been on the city council in 35 years, but I said, yes, ma'am. And I call the city shop and they go up and take care of it. So the folks that you take care of, and there are constituents too, but for them, we're just all the big G, government, we're government. And so they pick up the phone and call who they know. Most of the time it's you. Or I'm sure you probably still get a few calls too, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, we're all in this together. So I'm definitely in favor of trying to figure out something to put this on a number. So we're not just coming down here because it's the same thing every year. It's just how much money do we have and who's in charge of the microphone that day and get, I'd rather have it tied to something that we could at least go home and talk about. Or as Senator Anderson says, we have to go down and defend this on the floor. We need something more than, and just a good idea to take it to 146, because someone else is going to give us another number. And whether it's up, whether it's down, it'd be better if we had some way metric to put to it. Be a heck of a lot easier to sell. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fraser, I'd make the same request of you as I made high to low, the percentage of a community's budget that comes from this. Sheridan's, it was 8 to 9%. It wasn't a third. And I'd be curious to see what it is. I know in most small towns, it's the difference between being able to open the doors and not.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm sure my staff is listening to this right now. And so that request is probably going out as we speak. There are 99 municipalities, but we'll try to pull together that information just as quickly as we can and get you what information we have as it's coming in.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to, mostly we don't want to talk too much because we want to get the bill out to the floor, but I do want to just kind of retrace the history of it a little bit. We had the Madden formula. And then when I was on this committee with Senator Bebout, we worked to modify it, to tilt it towards the smaller towns a little bit more. And that was a battle. You'd like to believe the municipalities are all for one and one for all, like the Three Musketeers, but to give relief to all those small towns, it ends up costing the big towns $2-3 million each. But the size of their budgets, to me, and Sheridan, it cost money, but I thought, it's all for the good of the order. It's tough. It's tough when those big cities see that, and they've got a lot more representatives than smaller towns. But we finally got that modification, so it became the Madden Bebout. And then one year we added some more money in, and Senator Hicks, who's from Baggs, the greater Baggs metropolitan area. And there was yet another twist that pushed some more money. And then, I don't know, a session or two goes by, it all blurs, but I think what we ended up doing is just bumping up the base for the small towns. And I think we doubled on the base, and then I think we added a little bit more on, and that cost the big cities a lot of money. And I still am not satisfied that this thing equitably distributes this money as well as it could. This may not be the year to fiddle with it, but if you'd send us those numbers, and Mike Madden's retired, he's sitting there with his computer looking for something to do,
May I, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
please.
Mike Madden is in fact a city councilman in
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so so Senator Drew, he would be available to us, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's just as irascible as ever. All right, thank you. Further public comment? Further public comment? Thank you, gentlemen. If you get tired of being in the municipal government in Albany, you might look at the legislature. Although I have to warn you that a city council meeting is far more efficient than any legislative meeting I've ever been in. Mayor Collins, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. I was elected mayor and took office in 2001. And as a new mayor, doing my first budget, I was surprised at how important direct distribution was to our budget. I think it was about 11% of our budget at that time. And as I looked forward, we had Microsoft data centers coming online, historic horse racing. I saw the revenue that was coming, and I told my treasurer and council that I really thought that by the time the '24 budget, the one we're currently in, we would see direct distribution being less important, and that we are going to grow our economy to the point where it would not be as critical as it was in 2001. And I was right halfway. The revenue came, Microsoft came, they built their data centers, historic horse racing, other things happened in the business, and we had increases in our revenues. But what I did not understand or anticipate was the inflationary environment that we'd find ourselves in and the challenges that that presented for us. And so now as we're starting our budget for 2025, direct distribution is just as important to us as it was. In 2021, it was our third largest revenue source, and it's going to continue to be just as essential to us as we move forward. You know, I think about the opportunities that we're learning from the Harvard group that you guys have brought to come and kind of counsel us as we try to grow, and how we're lagging behind all of our neighbors. And you know, if we don't make investments in our communities, you know, with our infrastructure and do those really necessary things, we're never going to be able to create the environment that is going to grow the economy. And you know, you guys, I think, are really an essential part of helping all of the municipalities and counties do that. We're the government closest to the people. We're the one that really is going to move the needle one way or the other. And if we're not making investments in ourselves, why would somebody want to come and make investments in Wyoming? Companies coming to bring those jobs. And so I look at you guys as being a really important partner in that mission, and I really do appreciate the support that we've got in the past, and hope you'll continue to do that as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the mayor? So Mayor, you heard the talk of an interim study, but I'd put a challenge out to WHAM and perhaps the county commissioners. Cale Case observed many times that Wyoming, in terms of how much revenue localities can raise on their own, is dead last. I mean, we are way too dependent on the state. But that requires you guys to come to the table and say, here's the way we would like to be able to raise our own funds. And that takes some courage on your part. I know in the past, your predecessor came to Revenue Committee and said, we want you to put another penny on tax and give us all the money. Said, well, you've already got a seventh penny option locally. Oh, we don't want to take that vote. We don't want to do that. And I said, so you don't have the courage to put a seventh penny on the ballot, but you want us to, you know, come on. If you want a self-help remedy, come up with what some of those self-help remedies are. There's 8 mills for a city in town. Maybe there could be more mills. You know, the local penny option. Now, that doesn't do any good in counties where you really don't have much property tax base or you don't have much sales tax base. But for a lot of the areas, I'd like to see you come to the table with some self-help remedies too, in terms of what you'd like to be able to self-assess and raise revenue, as opposed to just saying, you guys need to raise the taxes and give the money to us. I think that's fair if we're talking about a partnership. What do you think of that?
Mr. Chairman, I agree 100%. In Laramie County, the city of Cheyenne, we did a 6-penny sales tax vote. We asked for $130 million at our last vote, and the voters gave us $128 million of that. Our voters were maximum when it comes to mill levies. We have the 5th and 6th penny have for years, and they pass overwhelmingly. We have come to this body, though, and asked Mr. Sherwood had a bill this year that would create a way that we could take care of abandoned buildings and have those abandoned buildings help fund themselves. And so we've come with metro taxes in different ways, tax immigrant financing programs, and we've offered those and sponsored those, and we have not had success bringing them through the body. But we'll continue to bring those, because I do think you're right. We need to be a partner in this, but we also really do need this direct distribution.
Well, I'd be happy to take a look at a tax increment. That statute needs fixed desperately. It's not very useful as it is. I'd be happy to take a look at that.
Look forward to partnering with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ryman, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Is this working?
Now, before you came in, we added another $50 million. Don't say anything and screw it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My testimony is closed. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jeremiah Rima here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. I understand there's a couple questions. perhaps around the 146, and where that number comes from. That is the exact appropriation that you all appropriated through several funding streams last year for direct distribution. It initially started at 105 million for the biennium. You then added an additional 15 million through a modified Madden formula, and then added an additional, 26 million at the second half of that biennium last year through the standard formula. So 131 came through the standard Madden formula, the 15 through the modified version of the Madden formula.
That was the Hicks modification on the 15.
It was, yes, Senator, it was, and it was just adjusting the hardship for both counties and municipalities, and only for that 15 million. Mr. Chairman, my members would like to adhere to the Madden formula. I will say, I have tried over the years to break the Madden formula and figure out how to get more money to hardship counties, a variety of different things, and I can't break the thing. It just works, and my members are supportive of that. To give one example, we have 2 counties that actually moved out of hardship status in the last year. Those are Bighorn and Crook. One went out by about $3,000 per mill, and another by $28,000. So initially, when this was in the House, I started to look at, should we increase the hardship to bring those 2 back into that? And what I found out is that by doing that, I could get more money to one of them, but I would actually reduce the amount that the other would get by putting them back into hardship. So the only thing that I could come up with to actually keep them both on the positive side of that was just simply to put a little bit more money in it. Obviously, the House has tried to match the last biennium, and we support that. But the Madden formula works for us. Municipalities want to do something different, that's certainly up to them. But, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer other questions about this issue, but we do appreciate your support of this bill where it stands.
Thank you, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, as I remember it, the high on this was about 180 million 3 or 4 years ago when we had a lot of money. Is that right? Is that the highest we've ever been, or have we been high?
186, because I remember, okay, from now on, that's going to be the base.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I could get you the figures of that trajectory. We've been at 105 million since the 16-17 biennium. And with the exception of last year of moving up to the 146. Before that, yes, there were significant contributions above that, both to consensus and to direct distribution funding. I can get you those exact figures. I've shared them with your staff in the past, and happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, that'd be good for our floor presentation.
Yep.
That somebody's going to do.
Senator Guru. Mr. Fraser, welcome back.
Thank you. I apologize, Senator. I know it's not common to take 2 bites at the apple. I just want to mention that we do have a, we call it a 1-pager. It's actually a 2-pager, but we have a document that spells out the history pretty well on the direct distribution. We sent it last week, I think, to all the legislators, but we'll resend that this morning to you guys. I think that'll be helpful. It's got some, it's pretty user-friendly, got some good graphs and that kind of stuff. So we'll send that back out to you guys. So watch for that to hit your email, your inbox this morning, shortly.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, can we identify that some way? We're receiving 50 to 100 emails a day. It's getting where it's just delete them if we don't know who they are.
Yeah, a day. It seems like an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Bring a hard copy by.
yeah,
One of us can sign it, and we'll have it distributed out onto the floor, and they'll have it when the bill comes.
perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
be
you.
perfect. We're going back to an analog world.
Mr. Chairman.
As Mr. Riemann.
I did find that information in terms of pre-17. It was actually 17-18 is when we started at the 105. In the 15-16 biennium, it was 113 million to direct distribution, 70 million to consensus funding. In the 13-14 biennium, it was 101 direct distribution, 54 million to consensus. And I can give you back further than that, but it was near 300 million in a couple of those bienniums, back to the 7-8 biennium.
Anything? And I'll just share with you, I did get a little bit irritated with some of the local governments when the property taxes started to run up. And I saw where one municipality was expecting 5% property tax increase. They got a 25% property tax increase. We talked about cutting back on that. They already had the money spent in their minds. You know, that's our money. It's up to the legislature to fix it. If we put additional money in here, I'm probably going to make it personally, just me personally, I would make it inverse to the increase in the property tax collections. So the counties that really haven't had any run up in property values, I'd put it towards them. The ones that have had run ups in property values, I'd feather it back. That's just me. If there's anything on top of if I put anything on top of the 146, that's probably what I'd be inclined to do. Because some have had a big bonanza from the run up in property taxes. They haven't been inclined to lower their mill levy. But there are some counties and cities and towns, they don't have two nickels to rub together. And that's where I would push that. That's just me personally.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just offer a response to that. The lowest mill levy in the state of Wyoming, at least in the county level, county government only, is Teton County, 7 mills. On that 7 mills, they've still doubled their property tax collection. So conversely, if I give you a county like Niobrara County, they've had double-digit increases in the last year or so on property taxes. Yet the total take that they've had just on residential property taxes is only $43,000. So I can appreciate the sentiment, but I don't know that there's a precise formula that you can come up with that would account for all of these. The other part that I would say is that let's assume on a statewide average, and I don't have the data immediately in front of me, but generally if you reduced 12 mills, if you just got rid of all 12 county mills that existed, that's about $228 savings for a residential homeowner with a $200,000 home. If you looked at that in, say, Campbell County, you'd get rid of about $4 million in residential property taxes. You would lose $63 million in overall property taxes for that jurisdiction. Natrona County, you'd lose about just under $10 million in residential property taxes, but you'd lose $20 million in overall taxes. So I can appreciate the sentiment, but this is really complicated and no counties alike and no mill levies alike. And I'm happy to run you through all of that data. So I can appreciate where you're trying to go, but it's a really hard science to break here. And the Madden formula, again, it works.
Gotcha. Senator Guru
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
from Teton County.
Yeah, there you go. I think it is worth discussing, but that's another reason why I think we need to kind of take a look at this globally during the interim, because we also have, as we all know, a myriad of tax proposals sitting in front of us that could dramatically affect what taxes, what money they bring in. And none of us are going to know until after it's over what bills pass, what bills don't pass, and most importantly, in what combination. And then a citizens initiative out there that could come down. But, you know, right now I know we have to get going, but I just want to say, I do understand, I think all of us do up here. It was my mayor, who I'm looking at right now, who really brought it home for me when she said, you know, even if we have to stop street sweeping for 1 year because our funds go down, when we do that, and then it gets spring rain, and then the runoff goes into our stormwater system, which then goes into the creeks, then you get silt in the creeks, now you've blown out a fishery, and that's very important. So even something as kind of innocuous as sweeping the streets sometimes can have big effects, and that's why this is the things that you all have to grapple with every day. So we really need to kind of try to get something here that can maybe be more of a long-term solution. Thank you.
So I would suggest your home committee is not us, I think it's corporations. You might suggest to those chairs that you'd like them to propose that as an interim topic, taking a look at the finance. That'd be the place to go. Okay. We've got 5 minutes left. We want to move the bill down to the floor. Any more public comment? Closing public comment. It's to the committee.
Move the bill. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion or amendments? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Senator Anderson. Aye. Senator Carew.
Aye.
Senator Salzar. Aye. And Chairman Kinski.
Aye.
Chairman Kinski, House Bill 70 engulfed, passes with 4 ayes.
All right, it's down to the floor. It'll probably come up next week. Thank you all very much for being here, and God bless you all for the work that you do.